A debate that's making Canadians uncomfortable. Yes, as the cost of living rises, critics warn Maid risks becoming less about choice and more about circumstance.
At the same time, a major border project turns into a diplomatic and economic flashpoint, just as Canada courts new trade partners.
And later, Eddie is back with the Winter Games update as pressure builds on Team Canada. This is Night Talk Canada, episode 71. Well, Eddie, we have a lot of ground to cover tonight.
And want you to be part of the conversation. Let us know what you are thinking. Drop a comment.
Honest, unfiltered Canadian, the conversation we should be having. Let's get started.
We have the highest food inflation in the G7. The highest. Higher than the US, actually double than the US. We have 2.5 million food bank visits in a single month. A quarter of them are children. And just last week, I received one of the toughest, worst emails I think I've ever received in my 3 years as the Member of Parliament for Oxford. I woke up, I looked at an email from a senior. She said, "How can I apply for Maid?" She wanted to end her life. And in that email, she talked about the reason why. She said she can't afford to eat. She doesn't feel like being a burden on her own family, on her kids. That is a story from my riding. This is happening in Canada.
As affordability pressures intensify across Canada, the country's expanding Maid, that's medical assistance in dying framework, is being pulled into a wider ethical debate. Critics argue economic hardship should never intersect with end-of-life decisions, while supporters insist autonomy must remain paramount. Eddie, when I saw this Ontario MP standing up the other day and making that statement about the email,
Right.
I was just gobsmacked. I was at a loss for words. The fact that a senior in this country is in a position to find themselves writing their MP and asking for information and assistance in setting up assistance in dying.
Right.
What does that say about our country?
What does that say about our society here? When I read about it myself, I was sort of taken aback by the fact that, Gary, you know what? Let's not put the blinders on. I don't think this MP is making this stuff up. This actually exists in our country that you and I very often call it a wonderful country and a great place to live. And when you hear stories like this, it kind of reminds us that not everybody is as fortunate as a lot of us are. And in this particular case, you know what? I'm gobsmacked like you. But I don't think we should turn a blind eye to the fact that this actually does happen. In our country, in this day and age, it shouldn't happen. I guess that's what we're saying, right?
Well, exactly. But yes, Maid is really what you would say a compassionate choice for certain cases. However, now all of a sudden we're getting like these social economic vulnerabilities pulled into the conversation that could influence decisions. Can you imagine? I just cannot imagine somebody being in that kind of a position to be forced to do something like this.
Be forced to choose death because they can't afford life.
Yeah.
Like that is.
And they don't want to be a burden. And what really struck home to me and really tore at me was when he said that this individual did not want to be a burden on their family.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine if the family knew that this person had written to an MP asking for this? Can you imagine how they must have felt or how they would feel? I just can't believe it. Like, you know, and I mean, we're crossing all sectors here because seniors and especially frail seniors or seniors who, you know, have disabilities and they're living in poverty. They, you know, maybe all by themselves basically and living in poverty and,
Right.
and they have a disability and they're struggling with rising living costs and not knowing if they're going to be all of a sudden out on the street at the end of the month
Yeah.
because they don't have the money.
They faced with living outdoors and being homeless. Like Gary, it's I guess it's hard for me to fathom because I'm not there. One can only imagine what they're going through. Mental health issues or not, physical health issues or not. Having to look at struggling to live where they've got a choice that, you know what, I need help here. I'm not going to get it, and my choice now is to live out on the street. Like, how does a person in our country actually have to come to that kind of a decision? I think is more the question we should be asking ourselves and asking our MPs and our government. How widespread is this? How often does it happen? What's wrong with our social net programs that will help the elderly or those that are physically or mentally impaired, where they're forced into making a decision like this? And then again, all the individuals that actually review the circumstances and make a decision on whether or not they get a green light or not. It's just an added bit of pressure for them to make the right decision, because now, above and beyond just terminal health conditions, it's kind of opening itself up to more decisions made based on not necessarily scientific but moral decisions. The individual that's going to be giving somebody a green light to proceed with something like this, he's being asked to play God now, as opposed to allowing science to make the determination. I don't know, Gary. There's just so many things here at play. I am so blessed that I don't have to make these decisions, let alone be in that position. But to make a decision like that on the future of a human life, not purely based on terminal medical conditions, that economical implications that may start playing a part in that decision. Wow, that's a little, I don't know, Gary. I mean, my opinion is that's just a little much to ask anybody to make decisions on, because there's no right and wrong in this particular case.
Right. Now, there are discussions about the safeguards and expanding safeguards around this whole thing, because if you recall, a couple of years ago, there was a situation where a veteran was advised by a field worker, Department of Veterans, a field worker, to seek medical assistance in dying, because it would be better than waiting because they'd have to wait a long time for a certain level of treatment. Again, when that broke, it was like, what the hell? Did I just hear this correctly? That now we're telling older people, and especially like veterans, that
go kill yourself.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like, what the hell?
There are no words. And so now we get into the whole level of trust as well, public trust in medical and policy frameworks. I don't know if I trust the framework, the policy framework at the moment, how far it can go. And I have more trust in the medical side, but you start to question everything at this stage.
Yeah.
You really do.
The individual telling the veteran, as opposed to give the system more time to help you, let's move you towards Maid, MAID. I cannot believe that somebody in our government who's working as part of as a federal employee would actually make such a horrific suggestion to anybody that's at a hospital. I hope this individual was tarred and feathered, because that's just wrong. You can't just go tell somebody to go ahead and terminate their life. I mean, it's just not right, ethically, morally, and from a humanity perspective. That is just not right. Encouraging somebody to go kill himself because of the fact that happens to fall under some sort of law, that's okay to do so. And you know what? And when you spoke about checkpoints and how to make sure that this doesn't become a rampant, I'm not going to call it a free for all, but that we make it as difficult as possible for it to happen if the circumstances that are not there. For somebody to arbitrarily say, well, it's going to take so long to help you, you might as well use the government's Maid program to move forward on this. Is that just somebody not caring anymore and just wants to take the easy way out? Or I don't know what the circumstances were behind that. Regardless, you just don't say things like that here.
Yeah. And Monel asks, oh my God, how horrible. How is this possible? Yeah. And that's a question we're asking tonight for sure. Like, how is this possible? Again, as I say, I'm at a loss for words. And it's, what it's doing, Eddie, is it's testing this country's ethical identity and whether true choice can exist. When financial hardships shape the options available. Like, it's, wow. I'm at a loss. And we do have another comment here from Monel. And at least this person reached out to someone. I hope that MP was able to help with services we offer in Canada. There must be something. I definitely would hope that there is something for sure. But again, when you're looking now at the cost of groceries, and you can go 5 days this week to your local supermarket, and every day you're going to notice 2, 3, 4 things have gone up in price since the day before or a couple of days ago when you last looked at it. It's really getting out of control. And I know the government is spinning, and I get it. And some of the experts are saying, and it is true. Over the last couple of years, North America has experienced some really wacky weather systems. And a lot of damage between wildfires, heavy rains, hurricanes, tornadoes, sudden snap freezes, droughts. All of it has had an impact on our food chain. And then you have rising costs as far as transportation is concerned. We also, because we've put so many eggs in one basket as far as supply line is concerned, with the tariffs and the trade war, All of the produce coming in from the U.S. is a hell of a lot more expensive than what it was a year ago. A lot more expensive. So I get the cost pressures. However, on the other side of it, Eddie, like, think about this for a second. Not one grocery chain has, over the last quarters, posted any kind of a loss. They're all posting decent profits, and in some cases, record profits for the year. So something's out of whack. I get the increased prices, but ask the farmers at the gate. Are they getting, higher prices for their goods at the gate that they're selling to the wholesalers? I doubt it. If they are, it's minimal. And then, you have situations where I understand that the beef herd's being built back up in Western Canada. And if some people in Alberta have their way, we won't have access to it. And if we do, it will be costing us even more than what it does now. But beef herds were culled for a while, and it takes a while to build the herds back up. And so there are a number of external factors on food prices. But a lot of seniors who are living by themselves now, and I'm sure, Eddie, like, you've witnessed it yourself. There are a lot of seniors living by themselves, advanced in age. They still can get around. They're still mobile to a certain degree. But all they have is just their CPP, and they probably don't have a lot built up in it. The OAS, and then the other payment, which just escapes me now. But for some of these people who are like in their upper 80s and 90s, that wouldn't add up to a whole lot.
No, I mean it's far from a living pension, if you want to call it, when you can't pay the rent and the rents continuously keep on climbing, especially here in La Belle Province in Quebec. As you mentioned, the food costs just continue going up. Utilities keep on going up, Gary. I mean, Hydro-Quebec is constantly raising the price of power. There is not much left at the end of the day for the people who struggle, especially the elderly, and worse, elderly and sick, trying to eke out a decent life month to month. I mean, never mind living paycheck to paycheck or pension check to pension check. This is basically an uphill battle where they're behind the 8 ball for months and months and months. And then, decisions like, all right, great. In order for me not to get thrown out of my apartment, I have to not eat lunch for the next 5 days. That's just wrong. And you know what? Great. The generosity of food banks that are also struggling. How does somebody in their mid 80s to 90s get out of their apartment to actually make it to a food bank to help themselves? There's just so much, Gary, that the elderly and the individuals, that the people that cannot get around, that have who are incapacitated mobility, to be able to get to where they need to get to be able to feed themselves. And this is just one of the small problems that they have to overcome. And again, it just boggles my mind, Gary, that in our country that prides itself on its social net, that the cracks in the net, or there are holes in the net that are so wide that people are considering ending their lives because of the fact they fell through the hole. Don't you think it's our government's responsibility to quickly identify what those holes are and mend them, and try to find some way that the people in the latter years of their lives can leave this earth with dignity, as opposed to having to make a horrid decision that, I got to go because I don't want to be a burden to anyone and I don't want to live on the street. I, for one, Gary, would back up or push for a plan like this because, you know what, Gary? Both you and I are pretty fortunate right now. We're not there. And I think it's just a question a lot of us maybe looking at things through pink sunglasses, rosy sunglasses. It can very easily happen to any of us. When I'm in
Yes.
my 80s, hopefully I'm not alone. But if I am alone, well, things are going to get very tough very, very quickly. Having to fend for myself in my 80s, my knees, my back, who knows? I might not be able to get out of the house. Maybe I'm living up on the third floor somewhere. Then what?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, I tell you what, Gary, this segment one here, when I read the outline, it really, really, really struck a nerve in me, and it made me look at things in our country, in my neighborhood, a whole lot differently than I did last week when I was back in town.
Elizabeth says, I'm shocked living in the USA and having all this crap going on here and realize all government is corrupted. Sad to see. And then
Hmm.
she came back. Oh, she, don't
Joe.
want to get ahead of myself. We'll get back to Joe in a second.
Hmm.
There we go. Elizabeth came back with, is this crap happening because of the Trump regime? Well, in the US, yeah, for sure. Is it having an impact? Yes, it is having an impact on us as well, in combination with a whole lot of other factors, such as the natural disasters that we've experienced over the last number of years. And whether you're a denier or whether you do believe in climate change, the fact of the matter is our weather patterns have changed and have created some real problems for farmers all around. Now let's see if this will go, and now here we go to Joe. This is an eye opener. A
Wow.
26-year-old mentally ill man was denied Maid in Ontario. It was granted the service in BC. He was not terminally ill. There needs to be more safeguards. Wow. Now, he was mentally ill. So obviously he had the capacity, though, to just keep pushing through, and he had a wish.
Hmm.
And so he found BC, where he could get it done without the hassle that he went through in Ontario. 26 years old.
Yeah. Also, Gary, I mean, I was having a discussion with my wife about this today. Quite emotional, actually. And do you think? I mean, Joe's just giving us a perfect example. Do you think there potentially might be a large volume of individuals, quite a few individuals, that as opposed to them taking their life by other means, are finding, well, you know what, I can't kind of do this to myself, so let me see if someone else will do it for me. Are we going to be running in those types of scenarios more often than not? And it goes back to uh, the previous comments about safeguards. Who is going to be administering these safeguards to ensure that people are just not using this as an easy way out to something that they've been pondering for a long time and couldn't do themselves? I don't know, Gary. I mean, the avenues of discussion, the rights and discussing rights from wrongs, it just kind of branches out with every discussion on this particular topic. And I've only been talking about this for a couple of days, and so many different circumstances come through my mind in terms of A, how wrong this is, and B, how right this can be if properly managed.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you find that medium between the two without finding that someone made a very tragic decision where it didn't have to get to a Maid situation. Wow, what a conundrum. I mean, it's hard for me to fathom. I know you're struggling with this. I just don't know how the decision makers and the policy makers for managing these safeguards are going to be able to deal with this. I just I don't know, Gary. It's I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying this is wrong, but it's something that you just can't ignore is not happening based on what you just showed us at the beginning of the segment from the MP in the House. Like it's out there. This is happening on a daily basis. Now, what do we do as a society to help? I know in the United States it's every man for himself, but here in Canada we pride ourselves on our social net, as I mentioned before. How do we strengthen it? You can't do anything without money. At the end of the day, it's going to cost money. Where are we going to get it from? It's either from your pocket and my pocket, or somebody else is going to have to pay for it. But
Yeah,
it's
future
it's
generations
needed
with the deficits we're
future
running.
generations. Yes, yeah.
So, like I'm going through some material that I dug up while doing some research for this, and it's become highly controversial here in Canada due to the reported cases, which we're talking about now, where individuals requested death not solely because of the unbearable physical pain from a terminal illness, but due to the socio-economic suffering, lack of access to medical care, and fears of being a burden on family and or society. Lack of access to medical care, another reason that someone's now requesting assistance in dying. That speaks volumes to a huge issue in this country when it comes to health care. As much as, again, and you've heard me say this, I don't know how many times in the last 71 episodes, but as much as we brag about having universal health care, it doesn't really cost us anything out of pocket. No. When you're doing your income tax, it does, and when every time you pay tax on something, it's, some of it's going there. But the fact of the matter is, the amount of money that this country is spending on health care and the level of health care we're getting, and I'm not dumping on the frontline workers, we don't have enough of them. And one of the reasons we don't have enough of them now is I think a lot of younger people are shying away from it. It's not the career that used to have a real attraction for young people because of the ability to help people and save lives and status and everything else. It's not there anymore. It's tarnished. And when the pandemic hit, it really became tarnished. It's not attractive to young people as a career any longer because they're burning out. They're burning out in no time. So with the amount of money we're spending, a huge chunk of it is going to the bureaucratic side of the little kingdoms that people have built up in regional health authorities and in areas where hospitals are being run by, as individual entities, all of this sort of thing. The amount of support staff and bureaucracy far outweighs the number of people on the front line trying to provide service. And every week now, from somewhere in this country, you read or see or hear a story about someone who waited for 10, 12, 15 hours in an emergency room in pain, had been triaged. They go home, and first thing, they collapse dead.
Yeah.
And some people, and during the pandemic, it happened in Fredericton, and I believe in a hospital emerge room in Moncton, New Brunswick as well, during the pandemic. Died in the emergency room, waiting to see someone.
Every province, every one of our provinces has a horrific story to tell, and you and I, being our nose glued to the news feeds, every week we see something happening in some province or territory in this country of ours where somebody has died waiting to be seen. Especially when you read about 10 to 13-hour waits. I read one this morning, 10 to 13-hour wait for someone who was complaining of chest pain, only to be
Mm-hmm.
sent home and then coming back into the hospital and sent into the acute cardio ward and dying there. And then
Yeah.
the explanation to the family was, yeah, we missed that one. Whoa. I mean, Gary, we're seeing these stories every week. And again, it's through no fault of the frontline people. Both you and I have been lucky to get excellent services at the hospitals we've gone to when we needed them to take care of us. Okay, but both you and I have seen the look of strain on everybody's faces there that were attending to us medically. And they still try to do it with a smile on their faces. I talked about a story not too long ago where, I walked into the hospital at noon one day, and then I was still there for, 12 hours after that fact, and the same emergency doctor saw me, and her shift wasn't finished yet. And I'm not talking about a resident. I'm talking
Yeah.
about a seasoned professional as gray as me putting in 14 to 16-hour days. It's just not sustainable, Gary. And you know what? You're mentioning the younger generation no longer are sharing that interest we all had about helping and being someone in society, being a doctor, helping people out. Nowadays, it's more about the work-life balance. Well, you know what? If I do this, what kind of impact is it going to have on my personal life? And do I really want to sacrifice all of that? And the unfortunate thing today is it's not very attractive going into the medical profession because of what's expected of you, both during your education and your formative years. And then once you're actually a bona fide medical doctor, especially in Quebec, to be completely insulted in terms of the way you're going to be paid, where you're going to be sent to practice and whatnot. So our governments don't make it easy in attracting medical students or people to go into the profession. And our governments don't make it easy for them to be able to apply their trade in taking care of us. And then they don't make it any easy for them to actually stay. So you know what, Gary? It's just I'm finding that I'm reading these horrific stories on a much more frequent basis, even compared to last year when we first started our show 1 through 25, for example. You only saw it once in a while. I see something now once every week or two about
Yeah.
this. And you know what, Gary? It's not going to. Unfortunately, it's not going to get better.
No.
It's broken, and there just doesn't seem to be a will to fix it, to find the necessary funding. Taking it from dead zones, if you want to put it, of people that are there because of tradition and they've been there for kingdom come and don't do any work. Well, it's time to trim the fat in some of these places, and we've both have seen the fat. You mentioned the fat over in New Brunswick a couple of times already, and having two distinct organizations depending on language. We've got that same issue here in Quebec. And I'm sure other provinces have other issues from an administrative perspective. It's time to make those very, very, very tough decisions and put foot to butt, clamp down, understand exactly what this province and this country needs in terms of medical support for the entire country, and get it done. You know what? Professionals will find alternate forms of employment. There's just too much fat out there.
Yeah.
I agree with you
And
100%. Sorry for getting emotional, but
no,
this
but
whole segment one has really, really ruffled my feathers. I'll tell you that.
the other side of it is, Eddie, that we are competing with the world now for medical professionals because there's such a shortage. So many people have shied away from getting into the profession. Doesn't matter if you're in North America, Europe, you name it. We're competing on a global basis. And at one time, this country could attract a lot of top level professionals without any trouble whatsoever. But our reputation, especially when they come in and they see how things are being run on the front lines, and just even our, the uproar with family doctors here in Quebec and how they were treated. And even though Legault managed to kind of smooth the waters a bit, they really didn't get a very good deal coming out of that at all. But you look at that, and then the taxation burden in Canada, especially in a province like Quebec. We are really in a very competitive market, and for whatever reason, as a country, and maybe the federal government has to step in and say, look, let's pull everyone together, and we've got to look at this healthcare system, A, as far as how efficient or inefficient it is, and B, how can we make it more attractive to professionals to come here and set up.
That is very interesting what you just said, Gary. I mean, look, Prime Minister Carney, in all his wisdom in dealing with the Trump factor, pulled in all leaders of this wide and big country of ours. 10 provinces, 3 territories, in a room. This is how we're going to deal with the American threat. This is how we're going to deal with Trump. And I think we had the moniker of Team Canada, right? We had Premier Ford consistently call the entire group Team Canada. We are going to overcome this together. And you know what, Gary? You are absolutely right. We had a national emergency with what was going on with the United States and the threats towards us. It's high time that someone, Mr. Carney, you need to call an emergency meeting with every leader in this country, get them into the room and call it Team Canada too, because this is a crisis that's just getting worse, not day by day, but Gary, exponentially, absolutely exponentially. And you know what? It can get to a point where it's so out of control that there is no way to fix it. They got to do something soon. Mr. Carney, if you're listening and watching the show like Mr. Polyev, you got to do something about this. And Gary, you're absolutely right. They've got to get together and do something about this, because it's really becoming a national crisis, beyond national crisis.
Let's go back to the comments for a moment. Oh, and there we go. And Elizabeth, there. Wow, is that a legal thing that happens in Canada? I'm so out of it. Assisted dying, and then,
Sad emoji,
yeah. And,
yes,
and it is. And speaking of that, just a couple of things to bring up in the research I did. Lack of support in housing reports indicate cases where individuals, including those with disabilities, have sought Maid because they could not secure affordable, accessible housing or adequate home care. And of course, not wanting to be burdens, a significant portion of Maid recipients, 35.7% in 2021, identified the perception of being a burden on family, friends, or caregivers as a reason for their request. 35.7%, Eddie.
Oh my. Wow.
35.7%. I couldn't believe that when I saw that. And systemic failures. Critics, including UN human rights experts, have noted that Maid is sometimes more accessible than necessary disability support. So, yeah, sometimes more accessible than necessary disability support, such as wheelchairs or in-home help, leading to fears that the program is being used as a substitute for social care.
Whoa.
And medical care access. Instances have occurred where people choose Maid while on long wait lists for treatment or after being denied proper care. Wait, did you hear what I just said? After being denied proper care?
Yeah, I was just trying to assimilate that in my head. After denied, how can you be denied proper care? Based on what on what grounds? Like,
and a couple of other things. Poverty as a driver. The high cost of living in this country, particularly for those on disability support, has forced some individuals into severe poverty. One notable case involved a man who sought Maid because his rooming house was for sale and he could not find affordable alternative housing, stating homelessness is not an option.
Yeah.
Economic inequality. Research suggests that Track 2 Maid applicants, those whose deaths are not reasonably foreseeable, are more likely to come from poorer areas, be younger, and have no immediate family.
Wow.
A couple of other quick things and then we'll wrap it up. Expansion versus safeguards. The expansion of Maid Bill C7 to include individuals who are not terminally ill has raised concerns about premature deaths. Mental health debate. While mental health illness as a sole underlying condition was set to be included in 2024, the expansion was delayed until 2027 due to concerns that the system is not prepared to safely handle such cases. Dead people don't cost money. Advocacy groups and legal experts have raised alarms about the economic as well as moral calculations involved in expanding Maid, noting the potential for it to be seen as a cheaper alternative to social support. It seems like a stretch that you would even make that kind of suggestion in Canada.
You ever see the movie Logan's Run?
No.
This is a utopian world in the future where the society rid themselves of any sort of individuals that can't take care of themselves. That by the age of 30, everybody goes through this ritual where they basically their life is terminated. That statement there that you made about it doesn't cost money is very typical of that utopian movie made 50 years ago, about people ending their lives at the age of 30. So anything over 30, nobody has to worry about. And to think that we're actually coming to those kind of decisions today, where we're just arbitrarily writing off anyone that's elderly and cannot afford to live any longer, and not because of any sort of physical or mental ailments, it just blows my mind, guys.
Yeah.
So I'm glad this entire segment has been a real eye opener for me personally, Gary.
Well, a couple of other things. Inadequacies in the system. Evidence shows 70% of Canadians who want to die at home with palliative care cannot access it. Yet the same system is expanding access to medically assisted death. And proponents, though, say that Maid provides autonomy and dignity to those suffering from intolerable conditions, whether they are physical or mental. And some, including Dying with Dignity Canada, argue that the data does not show that marginalized people are disproportionately accessing Maid compared to the general population. The government maintains that 2 independent assessments are required to confirm eligibility, and that Maid is intended to be a last resort.
Mm-hmm. It seems to be getting a little further away from last resort, Gary, from what we've talked about the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't sound like last resort to me.
Now, just before we wrap up, I do want to say this. If you or someone you know is in crisis or considering suicide, support is available. Here in Canada, you can call 988 or text 988 to reach the Suicide Crisis Helpline. Once again, that is 988. Call or text to reach the Suicide Crisis Helpline. And we'll let it go at that. Really, once you started getting into this, Eddie, really don't have a whole lot of words in a lot of ways because I just can't believe that it does appear to be going in a direction that it should not be going.
Right.
So, anyhow. All right. Coming up, what do a bridge and trade delegation have in common? Trump.
Yep. And are you suffering with slow speeds and dropped connections through your current internet provider? Check out Quebec-based eBox Unlimited Fiber Internet. Gary and I are happy eBox customers. You can get more information on plans and availability by clicking the affiliate link below. And be sure to use one of the 2 promo codes for a special offer. Gary, a critical infrastructure project at the Canada-US border is now tangled in cost disputes and political friction. Just as Team Canada is in the midst of a major trade delegation to Mexico looking to diversify economic partnerships.
That's right. And what it's all about, Eddie, of course, is last week the Trumpster got his knickers in a knot over the Gordie Howe Bridge, which has yet to open. All of a sudden complaining about such a bad deal, which again, like Kuzma, he thought was a great deal during his first term in office.
Right.
And he's talking about Canada ripping off the United States and you know the usual crap.
Right.
However,
Right.
he seems to forget that Canada financed the entire cost of the bridge. So let's have a look at a couple of things here. Okay. Monel says panties in a wad. Okay. So, where am I? Let me down here and to the bridge. There we go. Okay, so the current estimated cost is $6.4 billion Canadian. That's about 4.7 billion USD. The original cost estimate was 5.7 billion Canadian, so it's gone up.
Wow. Yeah, it's gone up, but it's not a
there-
tremendous cost overrun like we see here in Quebec with everything's built.
Well, a lot of it occurred during the pandemic, and you had
Yes.
shortages of materials, and there were a number of things. A lot of it just seemed to be, okay, typical run-of-the-mill expenditures that shoot up, and price increases on steel. And that was one of the things Trump said, well, they didn't use any American workers or American steel in the bridge. Well, yeah, we use Canadian steel, we use Canadian
Sure
workers,
did.
but American workers and American steel also was supplied for the bridge. It's funded by the Canadian government through an agency they set up called the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. And that will oversee the operation. And that's in conjunction with the state of Michigan, which the president seemed to overlook, complaining that the U.S. doesn't have a stake in it at all. Well, you know what? The bridge does have roots in the U.S. on the U.S. side, right? And there will be all of the typical U.S. border security and everything set up. So Ottawa expects to
Gary,
recoup
we paid
costs.
for it. We paid for the construction of their border control on their territory. On top of that.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
Ottawa expects to recoup costs over several decades through bridge tolls. And the opening was originally expected to be early 2026, but Trump's little temper tantrum, the Triple T, may have thrown that out of whack because he has to sign off on a couple of permits at the federal level. And of course, Michigan wants it done ASAP because the bridge has 6 lanes, 3 lanes each way.
Right.
The existing Ambassador Bridge is privately owned. which a lot of people don't realize. It's privately owned and has been making this family, which happens to be a huge Republican contributor, millions every year. And the bridge is what? It's old. It's really old. I heard
Yeah.
a number and it just escapes me now.
I read something a couple of weeks ago that was actually in quite disrepair, and very
Yeah.
good maintenance is being done.
Exactly. And it's narrow. It can't handle the truck traffic. Now, one thing I would throw out there for food for thought is, well, as we broaden our trade base here and stop relying so much on the north-south corridor for trade, the truck traffic might get a little bit lighter than what they had anticipated prior to last year.
Right.
But that remains to be seen for sure. So anyway, it's supposed to open sometime this year. It's 98% complete. Basically what they're doing now is testing all of the safety systems and different alarms and things like that they have in place in conjunction with border security and that sort of thing. So it's set to go. And he is bowing to a very large contributor to the Republican Party, because the word is that a few hours before he went on his rant on Truth Social, he had a meeting with the head of the family that owns the Ambassador Bridge. And of course, they have been fighting it, and I believe there may have even been a court case. They tried to fight it in court, and they were overruled, because they're going to start losing a whack of money.
Yeah.
Once that new bridge opens up, because it's going to be all high tech, so things will flow through on a faster level for sure, and it'll just be so much easier for truckers to make their runs. So here he is, he's going on about it. And yeah, we financed the damn bridge ourselves. $6.4 billion. And they expect to make it up in the tolls with a few decades. What, 20
Right.
years? 25 years? That's not bad on a
And
toll bridge.
And then the Trumpsters say that we should give him ownership of half the bridge or something ridiculous
Yes.
like that.
Yeah. He's looking
good.
like, is he that stupid?
When we ask our viewers.
Well, exactly. Oh,
Oh,
well,
boy.
we do have a comment now. Elizabeth is
Oh.
on a roll here tonight. Where am I going? Here. And let's... Trumpeter, not the drama queen. So there you have it. That sums it up. But yeah, like, what is... How do you, I understand the frustration. Yeah, another distraction from the Epstein files, Elizabeth. And you know what, Elizabeth? That's not so far off the mark either. I totally agree with that. Stupid, you say? Yes, I said stupid.
Yeah.
In case you haven't noticed. My. But, yeah, like, he wants half. Well, okay, Donald, how much are you going to ante up?
Yeah.
How much are you going to ante up? Here we go. Now let's see. What have we got here? Let's see if I can add that comment right like this. Yep. Temporal frontal dementia, from what Monel said she heard today. I think that, yeah, they've been talking a lot about the dementia aspect over the last, especially in the last month or so. And if you look at his face at times, something's not, well, there was always something's not quite right, but something is definitely not right now in the state of the Oval Office. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, let's think about this. I mean, you know what? Like every time he opens his mouth, I kind of say to myself, "Oh, okay, what now? Why on God's green earth would he hamper the progress of a bridge that's going to stimulate the economies of both countries?" And the economies of both countries are hurting right now because of what's been going on regarding Trump's magnificent Trump program. This would stimulate both economies quite considerably. Okay, it doesn't matter what kind of tariffs are in place. There are goods that are going to continue going between both our countries. And if I'm not mistaken, this particular route, this particular bridge, is one of the busiest commercial land crossing corridors between the United States and Canada. Okay, so it goes back to, again, like you said, Gary. You know what, the billionaire owner of this particular bridge giving old Donald a phone call and say, "Hey, remember those millions and millions of dollars I gave you? I need something in return for this."
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's a whole other show to talk about the corruption, but this is basically mob boss corruption that we're looking at here globally. And no, and what kills me most is A, his administration defends it. B, the people who work for his administration defend it. And C, progress gets halted at the demise of who? Both Canada and the United States, Canadian citizens and American citizens. You know what? He wants to create havoc in Canada. Fine. You know what? Do what the hell you want. But by the same token, don't his supporters realize he's also hurting his American base? He's also hurting the American population and American businesses by holding back on this. And it just kills me that this kind of corrupt thinking, that the United States government, sorry, the acting United States government, does nothing about it. They just let him ramble on. They just let him stick with his rhetoric, whether it makes sense or not, and let's support him come hell or high water. So meanwhile, we have a bridge that's almost complete. We should have had a ribbon cutting ceremony planned already. You know what? Give him a pair of golden scissors on top of a pedestal that he can sit on and cut the damn ribbon. Let him keep the ribbon. Something. You know what? If on their side of the border they want to call it the Trump Memorial Bridge, do it, because that'll appease his ego. We'll still call it the Gordie Howe Bridge on our side of the river. Do what you want, anything to appease him. You know what? He ain't gonna be around forever. Names could be changed. It just doesn't make any sense to keep this bridge closed. And you know what? This is just another mothball that Prime Minister Carney has to deal with, as opposed to focusing his attention on the country. He's got to deal with this crap every week in, every week out. Yeah, well, enough said.
I know. And Joe says, speaking of Maid, maybe we can all chip in for the orange malignancy. Whoa. Okay. And then let's see. Manel says, I believe the governor of Michigan is a Democrat. Yes, you were right. She is a Democrat.
Oh, boy.
And then Elizabeth comes back to the fact that she really believes that this is part of the cover-up for the Epstein files. He's a freaking smart cookie. Getting up in the middle of the night and grabbing your phone and starting to fire off on Truth Social. Yeah, I'm sure that some of that is his intent to distract from the Epstein files. But in this case, he also has to keep a large Republican contributor at bay and happy.
Right.
So it's probably a combination of those things. So anyway, the bridge, as I said, is scheduled to open. They were hoping to get it open early in 2026, But given that the person in the Oval Office has had a temper tantrum, it's going to be probably delayed. They still hope to have it open this year at some point. And if he was smart, he would get it open. But he really doesn't give a damn about trade and the people of the United States. I'm really hoping that as I said earlier, we branch out and move more of our dependency away from just the United States, that in fact we can get away from the amount of traffic that would be going south to the United States with our goods, because we're shipping them everywhere else where they're welcomed with open arms, without the crap and the temper tantrums and everything else that goes on in the Oval Office and on Truth Social. So that's my thoughts on it. And speaking of that, up next, Eddie has an update on the Olympics. I'm sorry, the Winter Games. Okay, the Olympic Winter Games. Because you have to be, you really have to be careful in using even the Olympic, anything that's copyrighted by the Olympics. You have to be very, very careful. But have an update on what Canada's doing, what we've done in the past few days, and there's still a few days left before the closing ceremonies on Sunday, isn't it, Eddie? The closing ceremonies?
I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have a look at that. And before we do that, though, Eddie, I just want to pop in here with get things rolling. And okay, so we forgot to do something, and I really want to do this. So, as many of you know who've been following the show, Eddie is a snowbird, but not in the U.S. Eddie has been snowbirding in Mexico. And Eddie, take it away.
Well, as many of you, I'm sure, have wondered about my wonderful tropical backgrounds during the show, although the curtain just got closed, they are actually live. And tonight I'm speaking to you from Tulum, Mexico, where we're wintering from frosty Montreal, Canada. And I just want to let you know that my accommodations are courtesy of the local luxury collective and Zuna Stays. You can also escape winters or come for a vacation in style and luxury. Or do you need a business retreat or are planning a wedding? This is the place to come, and you can get more information from down below.
All right. And with that, Eddie, we'll turn it over to you for the Olympic update.
Okay, just give me a sec here. There's a lot to go through, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you, this has been an extremely, extremely exciting Winter Olympics. Canada, of course, started very slow out of the gate, where I think the last time we were this slow to actually get a gold medal was in the 50s sometime. That it took us more than 10 days to get a gold medal. But as I predicted in our last week's show and the show prior to that, Mikhail Kingsbury actually came through and won Canada's first gold medal. So there is quite a bit here I want to go through, and very exciting. And I know everybody's just waiting for me to get to the hockey, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep the best for last for women's hockey and men's hockey. Medal standings. Everybody's curious about medal standings, and to no one's surprise, we have Norway on top of the pile with 33 medal podium finishes, 15 of which are gold. And you know what? I think that the host nation of Italy just has to be absolutely proud and ecstatic by the performance of their countrymen and Italy's athletes. They've actually got 26 medals here, I believe it or not. Closely followed by the United States of 24. Canada, our Canadian athletes have actually medaled 14 times, of which 4 are gold, 4 are silver, and 6 are bronze. So congratulations to the Canadian kids for being competitive. Um, and I've also like to put a plug in for my country of ethnic heritage of Slovenia, all of 2 million people in population. Yep, we've got 4 medals. 2 of them are gold, one is bronze, and one is silver. And all of it is for that crazy sport of ski jumping, Gary. One of these days, you and I are going to go ski jumping, and we'll see how
No.
we actually how we actually fare. But
No.
yeah, all the medals are ski jumping, Gary.
I know
You
my
look like
limits.
you know your limits, yeah.
Oh, I know my limits.
Oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, so look, there have been quite a few stories during these games, Gary. What do you want to talk about first? Performances or controversies?
Let's do the controversies because Canada was involved in the curling controversy for sure.
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about. There's actually 3 I want to quickly talk about.
Yep.
I briefly mentioned last week's controversy about Vladislav Harashchevich, who during his practice runs representing the Ukraine, he wore a helmet showing images of Ukrainian athletes killed in the war, and it was actually ruled as a political statement under the Olympic rules on athletic expression. And Gary, there was a follow-up story to this. The IOC, the International Olympic Committee, did warn him, and he was actually barred from competing unless he complied with the ruling of removing the helmet. And there was, of course, an appeal. And Kirsty Coventry, the new IOC president, who's been doing a remarkable job in replacing Gabak, she actually postponed a personal visit to another event just to meet with Vladislav to try to convince him to compete without the helmet. Gary, at the end of the day, he stuck to his personal convictions and principle, and he refused. He refused not to compete with the helmet. And as a result, Gary, disciplinary measures, of course. The IOC withdrew his accreditation, meaning he was banned from competing, believe it or not. And the IOC was also supported by the International Bobsleigh and Skeleton Federation Journey, citing the Olympic Charter rules must be adhered to. So there's 2 huge governing bodies. They basically found him in contempt, and he could not compete with that helmet. And I was watching an interview by Christy Coventry, the IOC president, and Gary, she was in tears. She was so saddened that it came to this decision that they had to follow the rules, and I completely understand them following the rules. She was in absolute tears about the entire thing when she was interviewed. So she really did take it to heart, and it's something we talked about last week, how closely intertwined and how easily politics can become an issue. In this particular case, I won't call it politics, but there's an active war going on, and Ukraine is fighting for its life. And you had one citizen who decided to pay tribute to his fellow countrymen, and you know what? It ended up costing him his Olympics. And also saw a video of his coach, who happened to be his dad, who was just completely in tears about the entire thing, but he came back as quoted as saying he was extremely proud of his son for him to stick up for his convictions. And as a result, Gary, there were other competitors in support of the Olympic athlete, the Ukrainian athlete. They actually protested by raising the palm of their hands just before the races. And this was basically a reflection of what Ukrainian luger Olena Smaha did. She used her gloves on her gloves, she actually had the words in English written on them. Remembrance is not a violation. So all the athletes participating in the sled events were actually holding their hands up in support of the Ukrainian athlete. You know, good on them. I respect what the Ukrainian athlete did. And you know what? A lot of other people respected what he did. It's rare for an athlete to be removed right before a competition, but this is what essentially happened. He was awarded the Medal of Freedom by Ukrainian President Zelensky, one of the highest honors a citizen of that country can actually get. So you know what? The entire country is behind them for his position. So
Yeah,
that's the end of that one,
Eddie.
and the competition
Yeah,
continues.
I I get what he was trying to do, and we had a bit of a conversation about this. We go back to last week's stream where we talked
Mhm.
about the protests at the Olympics, and to me, again, protesters and everybody, you stay out, keep them as far away from the Olympics and the venues and everything as possible,
Right.
and go at it. But on the other side, the athletes know what the rules are,
Mhm.
and just go and compete. Never mind trying to make a political statement. Use your fame that you gain if you're a medal winner, especially a gold medal winner, after the fact. But while you're at the competition, you should be just focusing strictly on the competition, your competition, so that you're at peak performance level all the way through.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just my 2 cents, and I'll stop. I'll leave you alone now.
And you know what? On a good day, Gary, I would actually agree with you. Um, the only problem is, as I mentioned at the onset of the segment, politics and what's going on in the world are so tightly woven in the psyche of a lot of these athletes, and it's just becoming very difficult for them to just do what you're suggesting for them to do. You train for 4 years, just
Mm-hmm.
focus on the event, and then go out there and win the event, and then do what you can with your notoriety. I guess in this particular case, you just couldn't hold it back and made a tribute out of it. And look, you know what? There were other political statements being made. A lot of the American athletes are saying they're competing for the United States of America that they remember, not the United States of America of today. I mean, that's a whole segment in protest in itself. But you know, the MAGA group, of course, are up in arms because of this. You know, you're competing for the United States. You're supposed to promote the United States. You know what, Gary? In some cases, you're in an Olympic village where the entire world knows exactly what's going on in the United States, and you're kind of feeling a little small about being part of the United States, and you're going to be invariably asked questions about the United States. So, you know, the American athletes, I feel for them, they're also under an extreme amount of pressure to be very careful as to what they say. Who knows what the consequences are going to be when they get home in terms of their continued athletic scholarships and whatnot. So it's politics have just taken a grip on international events like this, and I hope one day it'll go back to the way it used to be, where it was all about the athlete and the competitions. Now, Gary, getting back to some other controversies, curling. Yeah, Canada had a curling controversy, and during a Canada versus Sweden match, Gary, Swedish players openly and verbally accused Canadian curler Mark Kennedy of double touching a stone after release, which is legal under curling terms. So, if you recall, the curler will move forward with the stone, let it go, and kind of twist the handle so it'll turn, or the stone will start curling. Well, just before the touch line, he just kind of poked the stone a little bit. I don't know what the intent was. Was he trying to turn a little bit more? Was he supposed to try to poke it and get in some more speed? I don't know. I've never been a curler, but it's illegal under curling rules. Now, here's the thing: there was no penalty that was issued because the officials did not see the violation, and no penalty. There was no clear violation. And what's unsportsmanlike, Gary, wasn't sportsmanlike about this was Canadian curler Mark Kennedy, as I mentioned, he started hurling four-letter profanities towards the Swedish team. Uh, in all his glory and anger, saying that there was no double touch. Now, clearly, Gary, there were videos after the fact that showed a double touch. It was just a delicate touch, okay? And you know what? Curling, very much like rugby, is known for self-officiating and sportsmanship. And you know what? This felt unusually tense. Now, I saw it. He did barely touch it. And you know what? The right thing from the Canadian curler should have been, you know what? Oops, I screwed up. Let's call that shot illegal, and he didn't do that. which is why the Swedish curler called him out on it. And of course, there was a little bit of mind games that go on back and forth. But the IOC did not penalize him, but they did remind him that he's in the Olympics and there's a certain level of sportsmanship that the Olympic Committee is expecting from every one of the athletes. So, you know what? Yeah, we got into a little tussle there, and in the very aggressive and physical sport of curling, yeah, leave it to Canadian to start a fight somewhere on the ice, right? And and the other one, Gary, the last one I'll talk about is the Canada-France hockey game where Canada defeated France 10-2. And it's the big fight everyone is talking about. Now, this was between Canada's Tom Wilson and French national player Pierre Pignon. And this fight basically happened late in the game when the game was pretty much over, and the French player decided to really make a high dirty hit on Canadian star Nathan MacKinnon. Now, Wilson, who's a very, very talented hockey player, but he's also not afraid to drop the gloves, and he's a tough individual. He jumped in to defend his teammate, and the gloves came off. Now, unlike the National Hockey League, Gary, fighting is not allowed in IIHF hockey, which the Olympics actually follow in terms of rules. And immediately, penalties were dished out. And how big of a fight was this? It was more of a dance and more swinging and gloves off more than anything else. And you can see that Wilson was restraining himself because he knows how severe the penalties potentially might be in terms of his continued participation in the Olympics. So he kind of held back. Anyway, they both got game misconducts, 25 minutes for fighting and ongoing roughing penalties. Now, here's the interesting part. There was no further disciplinary actions or measures against the Canadian player. However, Pierre Crignon from France, the IOC didn't put tougher sanctions on him or penalize him. It was the French Ice Hockey Federation. They suspended him for the rest of the Olympics, Gary. Why? Behavior on and off the ice violated Olympic values, and it was reported that Crignon made provocative gestures towards fans as he was walking out of the arena. So it was the French Olympic Committee that said, you know what, this is not what we want to promote for the Olympics. You're gone. So again, another incident on ice, Gary. You just can't keep the Canadians from not behaving themselves on the ice. And you know what, Gary? Actually, so far throughout the Olympics, it's worth noting because you might expect it from the Olympics, but there have been no major doping disqualification yet reported, at least publicly. There's not one incident so far, which is really great to see. There was also no medal strips or retroactive bans.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, there are no medal strips. Nobody was stripped of their medals or retroactive bans announced, and there were no mass disciplinary rulings against teams or federations. So far so good, and that's I think that has a lot to do with the new IOC president in terms of ensuring these games went very smoothly. Gary, let me talk about Canada's performance, if I may. You know what? We're not going to be beating our record that was done in the 2010 Olympics, but the athletes are doing very well, and they seem to be picking up steam. So we picked up a medal in figure skating, bronze. In freestyle skiing, we're doing very well as expected. We got 2 golds, a silver and a bronze. Short track speed skating, which now the medal activities happening in the next few days. We got a gold, 2 bronzes, and 2 silvers. Snowboarding, we got a silver medal. And in speed skating, Gary, we have 1 gold and we have 2 bronzes for a total of 14 medals. And I'm not going to go through all the Canadian medalists, but I will make some mention of our gold medalists. In freestyle skiing and men's dual moguls, as I predicted, the king, Michael Kingsbury, has come through and he won the gold medal. In women's free ski big air, a gold medal went to Megan Oldham. In speed skating, women's team pursuit, gold medal for 3 lady speed skaters. And my wife and I actually won that race, watched that race. Extremely, extremely exciting. Where up until the last lap they were trailing, and they actually steamed ahead and won the gold medal in that. Quite the event to watch. And also gold medal in the men's short track speed skating 500 meters. Stephen Dubois won a gold medal in that one. And there's a whole slew of other people that I can go through, but it'll take us quite a bit of time. So the Canadian athletes are faring very well, extremely proud representing our country. And Gary, I'll tell you what, I watched the medal ceremony, and every time you hear the Canadian anthem, it's very, very hard not to get goosebumps on your forearms and your skin. Just watching that Canadian flag getting raised, and then watching the athletes taking the moment. Really, really something to see.
And there was a show-stopping moment the other day when, after the hockey game, the Canadian women just stayed on the ice when the game ended and stood there in a line and sang the national anthem on their own.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And again, it all comes down to the athletes realizing and understanding why they are there. They are there. This is the largest combined global sporting event there is, the Olympics. It doesn't get any bigger than that. And to show that kind of respect, commitment to their country, and in the spirit of the athletes at the Winter Olympics, there was no greater display of sportsmanship and national pride than what the women's team did. No question about it. And while we're talking about women's hockey, Gary, there's always a Canada versus USA rivalry, as I mentioned last time. This is the 8th Olympic tournament where that featured women's hockey. USA has taken home 2 gold medals so far, and Canada has won 5. And except for just one time, all the finals featured a Canada-US finale, and Canada versus Sweden in 2006 in turn was the only exception. Now, interesting note here. I don't know if you knew, Gary, but our Canadian women have lost 7 straight games versus the United States in any sort of international tournament or play. And let me tell you, the Olympic women's team is a tough, disciplined, well-skilled, and well-coached hockey team. No question about it. So going into tomorrow's game, Gary, the bronze medal game is between Sweden versus Finland, and the gold medal game again is between Canada and the United States. And the Canadian girls, the Canadian women are actually going into this as underdogs. And you know what? It's going to be a great game in both cases. Switzerland versus Sweden for the bronze medal, and the gold medal game is going to be a great one too. So that's happening tomorrow, Thursday. I believe the Canadian women play at 1 p.m. tomorrow Eastern time. So I'm looking forward to that tussle, and good luck to the Canadian women. You should be proud of yourselves.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Let's get on to the men's hockey. The quarterfinals, Gary. After all the preliminaries have been done, this is when the big boys come out to play, and I say that very often, where some players excel and some players do the Houdini and disappear. And let me tell you what, the teams in the quarterfinals did not disappoint. So, of course, Canada, along with the United States, made it in as top of their groups. And in today's games, we had Slovakia versus Germany, Canada versus Czechia. And Canada beat Czechia handily 5-0 in the preliminary round. We had Finland versus Switzerland today, and USA versus Sweden. I watched the Canada-Czechia game, Gary, and I'll tell you what, Czechia, they showed up to play today. And it was up and down, excellent display of hockey from one end of the rink to the other. The goaltenders are both standing on their heads. Canada was out shooting Czechia by a 2-1 margin by midway point through the game, but the scoring chances were fantastic on both ends. And Gary, with 7 minutes left to play, it was a 2-2 tie. Palat from Czechia scored for the go-ahead goal, 3-2. Now, while we were on the subject of controversy, Gary, we had controversy here. You sitting? Okay, here we go.
Yep.
At the time of that go-ahead goal of 3-2, with about 7 minutes left to go, Czechia had 6 players on the ice the whole play. This is 6 skaters plus the goal, which is a no-no. They had 6 players on the ice in their zone. He had 6 players on the ice when one of them blocked a shot. They had 6 players on the ice when they skated down the opposite end of the ice towards the Canadian goal. And after they scored a goal, there were 6 men in the corner beside the goaltender celebrating on the ice. Now here's the kicker, Gary. No one saw this. The referees missed it. Canada's bench staff missed it, the coaching staff, and Canada's coaching and booth staff missed it as well. Normally they will radio down to the head coach and say, hey,
Yep.
You better challenge this. No one challenged it. And the rule in hockey, if there's no challenge, as soon as the puck drops, it's game on. So can you imagine Canada losing in the quarterfinals, not making it to the Final Four because everybody missed the call? That was so freaking close, Gary. Anyway, moving on. The tie. Montreal Canadiens. Yes, the Montreal Canadiens captain Nick Suzuki ties the game with his first goal of the tournament with about 3.5 minutes left to go in the game. And this game goes into overtime, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
And a minute and 22 seconds into overtime, someone who I never liked as a hockey player, yes, he used to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Mitch Marner, formerly of the Toronto Maple Leafs, presently of the Vegas Knights, scores the winner in overtime, 1 minute and 22 seconds. Canada wins the game 4-3. And let me tell you, Gary, when they scored that goal, I was upstairs on the roof by the pool. My wife was up there with the charming 3 other women taking sun. I had to yell. I had to celebrate and yell. And unfortunately, that didn't go over too well because I was disturbing the tranquility and peace of the pool. But you know what? Canada won. It was an emotional outburst. I couldn't help it. I'm a hockey fan, and you know what? It was a game for the ages. Canada prevails at 4-3. You know what? The Canadians, I'm not sure that they underestimated Czechia, but Czechia has a very, very talented team, and they came to play full marks for pushing Canada to its limit. The sad note of this entire story is Canada's captain Sidney Crosby really fell awkwardly on his leg, and he limped off, and he did not return. And Coach Cooper was basically trying to hold an interview and kind of convey positive vibes, but I really don't know if he'll be able to make it back because it did not look good. That
Yeah,
twist
you
did
said
not
his
look
leg
good.
kind of, I didn't see it, but you said his leg kind of went into a
It
weird.
kind of buckled under him as he went back, and
Right.
it did not look good. So
Yeah,
let's
no,
hope
that
he's
doesn't-
going to be okay.
That doesn't even sound
Just
good.
No, not at all. I mean, he came off the ice in obvious pain, and then he hobbled down to the dressing room, and he never came out. So let's fingers crossed on that one because that would be a big loss for Team Canada. In other games, Gary, very important. Slovakia 6 versus Germany 2. And yes, Gary, another Montreal Canadiens player, Juraj Slafkovsky. He's having a hell of a tournament again. He's got multiple goals and multiple points. He's a big man, a young man, and he's doing extremely well in the tournament. So Slovakia moves on to the semifinals, beating Germany 6-2. In another round, we had Finland playing Switzerland. That one also into overtime, and like Canada, Finland was constantly behind on the scoreboard, and they actually won the game 3-2 over Switzerland in overtime. And another one, the favorites, United States. USA and Sweden went into overtime, Gary, at 1-1. And very early in overtime, Quinn Hughes of the United States, he nets the winner in overtime. So United States, Finland, Slovakia, and Canada move into the next round. So what does that mean, Gary? Come Friday the 20th, Canada versus Finland at 10:40 a.m. our time, Eastern, and United States versus Slovakia at 3:10 in the afternoon. And then for anyone that's interested, we've got the bronze medal match from the losers of this semifinal set up on Saturday at, I believe, 2 p.m. Eastern. And the gold medal on Sunday morning at 8:10 Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know what? Let's hope we see a Canada-USA gold medal game, because that'll just set the stage for a rematch of the Four Nations Cup, in which Canada beat the United States in overtime. And there has been a lot of trash talk coming from the United States in terms of getting some retribution to that loss. And they're basically saying, remember that loss at the Four Nations tournament. So, yeah, that's it for me from the Olympic side, Gary. And you know what? I forgot to do my research on one other thing today. It was a shout out. As you know, the Olympic venues for ice hockey were very, very, very late in terms of completing their construction.
Yep.
And the Canadian professional, who's also known as the Godfather Ice Doctor of ice surfaces, he has absolutely, and my apologies, I can't remember his name. He has been an absolute savior of all the ice surfaces at the Olympic venues, where it has managed, the ice surfaces has managed to survive the test of hard competition on the Olympic ice surfaces. And I've heard interviews from the players saying at the beginning of the tournament, the ice was a little slow, but I guess he must go to center ice, have a poutine, and basically sing the kind of this hockey song and pray to the ice to get it into great condition that it's in right now. So hats off, Gary, and just a reminder for me, I'll have to remember what his name is so I can bring it up in next week's show. He's done a fantastic job on the ice surfaces, so all credit to him for the success of the ice hockey games.
Alrighty, and guess what? That brings episode 71 to a close. 3 big conversations tonight: ethics, economics, and national pride.
And remember to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, or follow us on Facebook to help us get in front of more people like you. We do appreciate your support. I'm Maid. Good night.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. And I just want to put a reminder out as well that going back to our first segment, if you or someone you know is in crisis or considering suicide, support is available here in Canada. You can call or text 988. That's 988 to reach the Suicide Crisis Helpline. So, as I say, it's been quite the night. A lot of ground covered, a lot of thought-provoking information coming out, especially in that first segment. And yeah, really appreciate everyone and the comments that we've received tonight. And tonight we're going to end the show a little differently. You remember that a week ago yesterday, Tumbler Ridge, BC, was shattered by a mass shooting at their secondary school. And on Friday night, the leaders of our 4 federal parties, at the invitation of the Prime Minister, the other 3 came along to take part in a vigil in honor of the people who lost their lives, the children, and the 2 children and the little one who was just on the edge. The last report I saw yesterday was she was starting to show some solid signs of recovery.
Yeah.
9 dead in that tragedy. And of course, we're still waiting for more information to come out from the CBC, or from the RCMP, I should say. So, to end the show tonight, I just thought we would give you, in case you didn't have the opportunity to see it, just give you an overview of the people, a community of about 2,400 people, the people who turned out for that vigil. And to pay their respects and to, as they say, hopefully begin to heal. So with that, I will say good night, and we'll bring that up.